big topic ahead, functions. This is a core topic in Python and in fact in any other programming language. We are going to use functions a lot to build our applications. So, first, what is a function? Well, you can use a function to organize your code in blocks that can be later reused. This is helpful if you want better readability for your code, modularity, and also time saving when running the code. This is going to be more obvious for you when we will start using functions and see some examples. Before starting to write code, remember that functions follow the same syntax rules as other structures we've seen so far, but also add some features that we're going to see soon. First, a function is defined using the def keyword, followed by the name of the function, a pair of parentheses, which may or may not contain any parameters, and then a colon. After the colon, on the next row, you will type in the code you want to store in this function, indented by one level, of course, as you have seen we did with if or while statements. Let's see this in the Python interpreter. So, let me type this first, def my first function, open and close parentheses. This is our first function. And also let's add a print hello Python. Okay, so as I said before, we have the def keyword, the function name, then the parentheses, and finally the colon. This is the way in which you define functions. One important thing to add here is that in between the parentheses you can specify the arguments or parameters for a function. We will see how to do that in a moment. Until then, let's further study our function definition. After the colon, which signals the start of an indented code block, we type in the code we want this function to execute, indented, of course. Notice that on the first row inside the function, I typed in a string. This is called a docstring, and its role is to describe the role of the function. But it is entirely optional. Maybe you can use it when you define complex functions within complex applications. However, it is still a good practice to use a docstring inside your functions. Okay, you can access the docstring of a function by using a command that we talked about in section 1 of the course, the help command. Let's see this. So let's do a help on my first function. Okay, we can see this is our first function right here. We basically created the help section for this function by using a docstring. Okay, type Q to quit the screen. Now inside the function, all the syntax rules of Python apply as we saw up to this point. If you have a for or a while loop or an if statement, or if you use dictionaries or list indexing and slicing, the exact same syntax rules apply inside function blocks. I said earlier that functions are reusable blocks of code. Let's see why. After defining a function, with or without any arguments inside the parentheses, we can call that function whenever we need to run the code inside it. To call a function, you just need to type that function's name followed by the parentheses, and that's it. Let's see this in action. So, my first function, open and close parentheses. Okay, each time we call that function, it executes the code within it. Of course, this is a very basic example, but it should give you the main idea about functions. Another advantage of functions is that you can change the code within a function and see the results the next time you call the function. So we can say they are dynamic structures. So let's modify our structure, our function. This time let's print hello Java, and now let's call the function. Okay, as you can see, the function has been indeed updated. Okay, now let's talk a bit about parameters and arguments, and we will expand on that in the next lecture to see multiple types of arguments that can be passed into a function call. For now, let's change our function and insert our first parameter into the picture. Remember, parameters are written inside the parentheses. Let's see how they work. Let's use def of my first function of x, let's say, and let's just print x. So in this case, x is passed as a parameter to our function and then used into the code. This means that when we are calling the function and give it an argument of our choice, that argument will be passed to the code inside the function. Let's see this. Let's try my first function of hello Python. Okay, nice. So we called our function and told Python to use the string inside the parentheses as an argument. Then the string is passed to the print statement and thus returned to our screen. You can also enter multiple parameters within a function definition, like this. Let's say my first function of x and y, and let's print hello, plus x, so string concatenation, and print hello plus y. So according to this piece of code, we expect that when calling the function and passing two strings as arguments inside the parentheses, they will both be printed out to the screen, preceded by the hello string. So let's see if we are right. Let's call my first function and use Python as the first string and Java as the second string. Okay, notice that x was mapped to Python and y was mapped to Java, because that was the order in which we passed the arguments. Pretty intuitive, I think. Okay, as a side note, one thing to remember here is the terminology when using functions. Parameters are the ones written in parentheses when calling the function. So let's say in our case x and y. Arguments are the ones written in parentheses when calling the function. So in our case, Python and Java. Many times they are used interchangeable, but you should try to follow this terminology though. We will discuss arguments in more detail in the following lecture. Now we are going to touch another topic, that is the return statement. This statement is used to exit a function and return something when the function is called. So let's delete the print statements inside our function and see how does the return statement work. Let's actually redefine our function. So def my function of x and y. Let's create a variable sum equals x plus y. Okay, and that's it. So we created a variable inside our function in which we will store the result of adding x and y, which are the function's parameters. Let's see if our function returns something when we call it. So let's try my first function. Let's use some integers. Let's say 1 and 2. So nothing is returned. That's because we didn't specify what do we want to get back from the function. This function just creates the sum variable and stores the result of adding 1 and 2. But it doesn't return anything. That's why we need the return statement. Let's see how to use it. Let's get back to the function. Sum equals x plus y. And let's type in return. This is the keyword. And the variable we want to be returned. So sum. Now let's call the function again using the same arguments 1 and 2. This time we got a result. This time we told Python to return the value stored in the sum variable, and we got the expected result of adding the two numbers. Now we can just change the function and call it with any desired argument. So let's say 2 and 2, let's say 2 and 20. Okay, now let's add another parameter, change the math expression and return the sum value, this time squared. So let's get back to the function. Let's say sum equals x plus y times z, and let's return sum to the power of 2. Okay, let's call the function now. Let's use 1, 2, and 3. Okay, oh, I forgot to add another parameter in the function definition. This happens, don't worry. So x, y, and z. Okay, use the up arrow key. Return sum to the power of 2. Okay, now let's call the function. Okay, and it returns 81 as a result. The result seems correct, so that's great. The last thing I should add here is that if you just use return without specifying what do you want to be returned, Python will give you back the none value. So return without specifying what to return is actually the same thing as return none. So let's test this. Let's use the same function. Let's write it again just to have it here. Okay, return, and instead of sum to the power of 2, let's return and type nothing more. Now let's call the function again with the same arguments. So you see nothing is returned. Good, this is what we wanted in the first place. Next we will cover function arguments.